Hello, hello. Good evening, good evening. How you doing? I'm wonderful. Thanks for joining. And Bunny, thank you so much for joining Michelle, Cheryl,
Hello.
Tanya, familiar faces.
What's happening, Patricia? You heard my baby too hollering.
Absolutely.
I'm still working. I still got 2 years.
Oh wow. Okay. Wow. Thank you for taking time to join in. My brother Bruno, thank you, man, for joining, for sure, for sure. I recognize when royalty's in the room. How you doing, my brother? Excellent, excellent. Thank you for joining. Yeah, so without any major delay, just wanted to, really just get right into it. A lot to discuss, as we look at the markets here. This is pushing into the second week of January. The markets it's a bloodbath, a little bit of recovery here and there, but for the most part, everything is red. For the past 7 days, the only things that are holding are stable coins. So that's been really interesting on the crypto side of everything. And then out of the blue, um, earlier this week, I don't know if you guys had a chance to see it. There was a wonderful interview, and if you guys are not aware, I'm copying. I was unable to replay this, so what I'm doing is I'm simultaneously recording this as Zoom, and then I'm just going to put this recording on my YouTube channel, just so that at least the audio is saved, because I really wanted to get into Bill Miller and what Bill Miller um, postulated so well on Wealth Track. Bill Miller III he did a 26-minute interview, and it was nothing but just genius from beginning to end. And what he was focused on, for those who haven't really paid attention, Bill Miller essentially indicated, and this is for those of you who are not familiar with the name Bill Miller III, this is a profound investor. All right, this is a guy who ran the Miller Opportunity Trust from 1991 to 2005, and his track record was beating the S&P 500 for his entire period of time running that trust. So this is a man who really gets it. He understands value, and and I have to say, he's bet big on crypto, and I'm gonna get into it in just a minute. Let me set the room. This is the Trade All Day Crypto Basics room. Thank you all for attending. Even if there's only 9 here right now, we're gonna jump right into it, because all of you that are here, I want to really make sure you get some value as we discuss and really review kind of what's happening in the market. And I thought this was a good focus for this evening, especially from a crypto basics perspective. I want everyone to really have some solid basics, and based on these basics, you'll be able to really understand it, and plan for 2022, right? That's really ultimately what all of us are doing. right now. We're putting our investments in place and making our moves. And I'm telling you, it's exciting, right? I've had a wonderful start to my week. I hope your week is going really, really well. And even in the light of all this bloodshed, I can say very confidently that my approach, as well as my current investments, remain very, very consistent. And it's because I take a very long perspective on this, on the window of opportunity, and really trying to make the best within that lens, because we're in a very, very different environment right now. And so for those of you who are new to the room, welcome. This is Crypto Basics, and every Tuesday at 7 we try to get into some gems that can really carry us forward. I see a lot of familiar faces, so I'm happy that you guys took some time. Here in New York, it's freezing, so thank you for spending some time with us. Bruno, how's the weather where you are? Cold and rainy. Yes, that's exactly where we are right here in New York. And I'm going to wrap up end of my week seeing my grandkids down in Tampa, Florida. So hopefully get a little bit of sun, get a chance to do a little bit of flying into the weekend, Martin Luther King weekend coming up. Yeah, so getting right into it, just want to really figure out exactly the value that we can glean from this legendary investor, Bill Miller, and the third, who did an interview on Wealth Track and really postulated that he's a billionaire, and he's concentrated half of his wealth to invest in Bitcoin. So for many, that will be really shocking because it breaks the rules of traditional investing in terms of managing risk, especially investing on something that is so volatile as Bitcoin. And he really looked at it, but he said, it's been the best performing asset over the past 11 years. So 100%, 70% on average, growth over the past 11 years, even though over that time it's fell to very record lows. 3 times it crashed 80%. Why would a legendary investor like this take a chance on cryptocurrency, right? So what he said, and it was really awesome, was he talked about his assets being concentrated in Bitcoin, and he said everything else is in Amazon. It was fascinating to see that approach. And then he compared himself to other investors. He said, if he compares himself to other major investors, he said, even though the rule is to diversify, they're also very concentrated on the things that they're really investing heavily in. But when he was making the argument for Bitcoin, and this is what I really wanted to kind of postulate, here today, is that he said the value is clear. And he said he was introduced to Bitcoin in 2014 when Bitcoin was only a couple $100. And he was at a Silicon Valley, meeting where there was a fabulous Bitcoin bull by the name of Wences Ciaris. All right. And Wences is an Argentinian who is, he's an entrepreneur from Argentina. And he started to talk about and introduce the Silicon Valley investors to Bitcoin. And he said, the reason why you guys haven't heard of Bitcoin, and this was 2014 when the IRS was just trying to get a sense of what it is. He said, the reason you haven't heard of Bitcoin is because you live in America. You live in an orderly environment that has, protection, reasonable in insurance, the respect of property, liberty, freedom, all of that kind of stuff. America's stable, right? But he said, if you lived in Argentina, he said in Argentina, 4 times, he said his family was wiped out. All of their wealth was seized, right? Their assets were taken. He said Bitcoin is his insurance policy, right? So when he talked about that, it really was bananas that, he introduced Bill Miller to Bitcoin, and Bill Miller really took that note about, comparing Bitcoin to an insurance policy. And then he really started to really look at, what was the value proposition to invest in Bitcoin? So he did. And even though, it did have these wild, volatile rides, comparatively, it's been the best performing asset. And then he also mixes that investment up with stocks. So he holds Stronghold Digital, which is a mining company that mines using renewable energy. And remember, for those who may not remember what mining is the ability to really turn on profits using ASIC mining devices. And these ASIC mining devices allow you to essentially build profits. And while you build profits, especially if it's renewable energy, it comes in the form of Bitcoin. So you're getting paid to process the Bitcoin transaction using these ASIC miners. So Stronghold Digital is a company that's doing that. He buys that stock. And then MicroStrategy is an American corporation technology company that holds a lot of Bitcoin with one of the main Bitcoin bulls, Michael Saylor, is certainly a Bitcoin philosopher that is behind MicroStrategy. So, again, what is the value proposition for investing in cryptocurrency and especially Bitcoin? He talked about how, it's when people look at investing, especially in inflationary times, people often talk about gold, getting gold, physical gold. And unfortunately, gold has not performed as well as the apex asset of Bitcoin. So when he compared it, he said, if people are going to hold gold in rough times, he's using Bitcoin as digital gold or an insurance policy for the rough times. And then he quoted Warren Buffett, who said, Bitcoin has no earnings, no dividends. And then, he broke it down by saying, all right, he gets that. And he took one of my analogies. He said, what is the intrinsic value of a Picasso? What is the intrinsic value of a Mickey Mantle baseball card made of paper, right? So when he really went to that extreme, it was fabulous. I loved how he really dug in. And and of course, he postulated, and then fundamentally he said, in order to be a long-term investor, he said, all you got to believe is that the demand will be more than 1.5 times each year in order to beat gold, right? And Bitcoin has been doing that, and as a result of that, he remains bullish for that reason. And then he also used a lot of the philosophies of Brian Arthur. And Brian Arthur was talking about increasing returns economics, right? And this increasing returns economics has been, really exciting in regards to, talking about and comparing it to what's going on with Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. And then he doubled down talking about how the same example that we've used in this room before, which is really looking at what was happening in Afghanistan, and how in Afghanistan there was a run on the banks. And when things got really bad recently last summer, you know, people couldn't even get MoneyGram payments, but if they traded in Bitcoin, and as I shared with you, I've met several people who actually took advantage of Bitcoin in that rough environment. And when nothing else could move, Bitcoin could move, and it really maintained and was able to store the value of all their hard work. And then he really looked at and compared Afghanistan and Lebanon's instability with the instability demonstrated by even first world governments when, you know, they increased the money supply just like they did in 2008 during the subprime mortgage crisis. So again, it was a demonstration that, you know, deflationary assets are not going to last in the long term. They're going to go to zero, right? And so as a hedge, as an insurance bet, you need an asset that's going to at least be scarce and be in high demand, and hold that to hedge against all of this volatility. And so, you know, he was talking about that fear and greed hasn't changed over time. Fear and greed have remained consistent over time. And you know, and then in terms of the large number of people will behave in certain ways when uncertain times come around. So, you know, really understanding that human psychology really can allow you to understand, you know, kind of what's happening in the market, but then even broader, how to kind of stay ahead of that trend, you know, moving forward. And one of the last quotes here from Warren Buffett was, "Fear is contagious and it spreads rapidly, and confidence returns slowly, one person at a time." Just saying that, you know, there is a lot of money to make when there is, you know, and again, there's a lot of ways to describe it, but when there's uncertain times, when there's rough economic situations, when there's, you know, the threat of inflation, the threat of, you know, pandemic still lurking around, and all of these different things, you know, there's an opportunity for investors to really take advantage of that in traditional assets as well as assets such as Bitcoin. And, you know, considering that the US economy is changing and technology is more important than ever, you know, I really resonated with what Bill Miller had to say, and, you know, and know that, you know, that interview is going to go a long way in really being one of the telltale, even though he's a well-known Bitcoin bull, he's made so much money with the asset, holding it from hundreds all the way to 60,000, you know, and still hasn't sold, because he really sees the vision. But the bottom line there is, you know, not everyone can afford a whole Bitcoin, and it's one thing for Bill Miller to take hundreds of millions of dollars and put it in play. It's another thing for the average investor to really consider, you know, how to get exposure and why it makes sense, right? So the bottom line here is, you know, really looking at, you know, different opportunities in the crypto space, right? And one of them that I introduced in this room, and it's one that hopefully those who follow my YouTube channel was able to really pick up on, you know, is the staking opportunity. And there's a lot of companies out there that are staking, and there's real opportunity to leverage staking to stack your rewards. And one of the practices, and again, this is not financial advice, but what people are doing are they're staking money. What staking means is that you're actually investing. So folks are taking, you know, let's say you take, you know, a couple $100 and you put it into this asset, and what they're able to do is many folks are taking that and then going back, using that asset and borrowing against the asset to stake it again. So it's almost like they're multiplying the effect of the profit that's being paid from some of these staking opportunities. So, really pay attention to what's going on, because I really think that there's some wonderful opportunities right now to really benefit, especially in these difficult times. So yeah, Sean, what's going on? Thanks for coming in. Yeah, so again, so that's my open to everything that's happening. And the follow-up to that before I open the floor for any questions would be, really to look at what's happening, with the Wonderland project. And for those of you who may have not seen my YouTube channel, I just want to reiterate it here, because essentially I introduced it to you here. So I want to make sure that, I follow up and make sure that everyone is on the same page. So essentially, what's happening with the Time Wonderland project is that, time is no longer the center of the focus of the Wonderland opportunity. The leadership, from Abracadabra Money and Popsicle Finance and the Frog Nation, and those names may sound like they're whimsical and childlike, and they really are. But it's really connected to a group that has really looked at the decentralized finance world, and they're making some major plays. One of their major plays are they're taking the liquidity away from the smaller network, and what they're doing is doubling down on Sushi Swap. All right, so those of you who are new, what was happening before was it was a dashboard, a website, and people were able to go to that website and invest on that website. Well, and then essentially as a result of that, let me give you an example. By let's say that we were investing in a particular asset. What they were doing by going through the dashboard and staking, they were multiplying the numbers of asset, and then essentially in the short run, it was exposing folks who pay their taxes in America to short-term capital gains tax. And short-term capital gains tax is not a good thing, right? So the move to what is called a wrapped memory or a wrapped memo is the move that is being promoted right now. And that move essentially allows folks to get exposure to some of the staking profits, but they don't have to go through the complicated dashboard that existed before. Now they're able to get the profits in a more simple way. And by simple, what I'm saying is they're able to simply buy AVAX, go to Sushi Swap, and convert to wrapped memories. And now the wrapped memories will just increase in price like a stock. So it eliminates the short-term capital gains problem. And then it also, it stops inflation and dilution of the asset in terms of just multiplying the amount of assets that you have, as opposed to just increasing the quality. So slowly but surely, the dashboard will lose liquidity, and they'll start to move away from the dashboard and move it to Sushi Swap. I haven't moved my investment, just so it's very clear in terms of my movements, because I one of my strategies in that, and I've bought the wrapped memories directly just to get exposure to some of those rebases, but I've kept my initial staking fund in the dashboard, because essentially as people start to pull out, the percentage of profit goes up. So until they shut it down, I'm going to ride the train, because that number goes up as as people pull out. So it's almost like an incentive to stay in. So I'm not rushing to pull investment out of that dashboard. And anyway, so that's just a personal strategy. Everyone can do their own due diligence. There's plenty of information about that, and I'm sure I haven't covered everything in regards to that project. The last point is that I really find their leadership to be, quite innovative and really bringing things to scale in a very, very tangible way. It's no longer, this kind of environment where you never know what's happening with this team. This Frog Nation team is really busy, and one of the big projects that they're going to be an early investor in is crypto betting. So let me describe what this is. The name of the website is called betswap.gg. And what this website actually is, it allows them to leverage blockchain technology. So they're going to essentially leverage the smart contracts and all of that. Even with the flaws, they're still going to be able to, have a number of different opportunities for folks to do betting in flexible ways. Like, let me give you a good example. I play chess, right? I love chess. So let's say, I'm going to play Bunny in chess. So Bunny, I say, all right, I'm going to play you in chess. Let me set up the game. And I got $100 on the game. And what I'll do is I'll connect the chess game to my wallet. And then whoever wins the game, the money automatically transfers. So it's like that kind of situation. So it's a very innovative vision in terms of the future of how cryptocurrency can really, innovate even online gambling. And I'm not a gambler, but I like this infrastructure, and I think it's going to be a profitable one, right? So, again, that's just a wrap up. I took the first half hour to kind of lay out that, and just wanted to see at this point if there's any questions about that or anything else. Happy to take those at this time. Well, thank you, Bruno, for the blessing of your time and your thoughts in regards. I think I have a few things to comment on, just beginning on what you were saying in regards to kind of the reckoning that's happening. I totally agree. I think there's a reckoning happening, but I think it's a little bit more complex than that, because, certainly, Warren Buffett's statement right now is perfect to restate right now, where it says, fear is contagious and spreads rapidly, and confidence returns slowly, one person at a time. I think, it's perfect to kind of say that in regards to, what you were saying in regards to the, people kind of double verifying what's happening in the marketplace. They see the economy kind of, going through some strange times, right? And there's a lot of real reasons why people are looking at and being fearful, and so they can justify it, right? When you but I think there's two sides to it, because and again, I don't know how it is where everyone lives, but in New York, when I go to the supermarket now, there's toilet paper, right? So supply is there. I don't have a problem getting supply of pretty much anything that we need from an American perspective, right? So some of this is really kind of a spillover from what we just went through, and we're trying to kind of figure out how to live differently, because we realize what life was during a pandemic, right? And Omicron, as in all of its glory, was, as LeBron James has stated and got really punished for, is really nothing much more than a cold in some way, shape, or form. And again, I'm not belittling COVID or anything like that. But I am saying that we're coming through some real tough times. These are kind of, from my Christian perspective, these are the last days of this earth, and even traditional investors. I remember Ted Turner saying that, a dozen years ago. So, and many of these investors are, giving back because they really see that, there's a limit to human existence, the end of different things in regards to how we've destroyed the earth, with pollution and things like that. So in all of that given context, I totally bring it right back to crypto and say, there is definitely a difference between, as you were saying on the NFT front, from a Bored Ape and from, some of these more less prestigious assets. However, to the point that Bill Miller made in regards to, the value proposition of a Picasso, I think it really applies here, because there are a lot of valuable, works of NFT right now. And I think that space has disrupted collectibles in a way that I don't think that will ever stop, Bruno. I really think that disruption was, this was the right time. The time has come for there to be some kind of transparent way to engage with collectibles. I mean, I think this is a wonderful innovation. Look at even the wonderful works of music that have come in the form of NFTs that are, and of course, many people come into the space as newbies, right? This is a basics room, so many folks in this room may not hold NFTs, right? Sean and I are about to release, a large collection of NFTs. We're talking 3,000-4,000 NFTs, right? And some real gems and some original works of art and all of that in the collection. So, we're bullish on it, and we see the long-term, benefit coming in regards to NFTs. And so I don't think that value proposition will ever go away. And when I say ever, I felt the same way about MP3 music, right? When I'm a very analog guy. I mean, I went to school in junior high school. I would type my reports on typewriters. I remember that, right? And one of my first opportunities of professional work, I worked at ABC Television, and I worked with the production team of Regis and Kathy Lee, and Regis and Kathy Lee had typewriters in their offices, right? So what I'm sharing is, that was a long time ago, and typewriters, most young folks don't know what a typewriter is. So I think, I felt the same way when I felt a computer. When I started using a computer, I said, this is going to be around for a long time, right? I felt the same way about smartphone technology. Well, I mean, let me back it up. Cell phone technology. I had one of the original cell phones. It was like a big pack. I had Cellular One. It was a big Motorola pack I had in the middle of my car. the big brick phones, right? That you used to see in Magnum PI back in those original days, right? But I felt the same thing about a phone. Go ahead. Yes. It is. It really is. I love that. I love it. I am. Because, I mean, think about it. The first time you had a cell phone, you knew that this was a keeper. No one was going back to hardline phones, right? Wireless technology has really taken over. The first time you used a laptop, who was running back to try to buy, large desktops unless you needed it for the horsepower, right? So I'm really good at feeling out technology, right? And as these different technology evolutions have affected our lives, NFT is just like MP3 to me. It resonates with me. It's deep in my spirit to say, this is something where you can engage collectibles. And I used to engage collectibles as a kid. I used to collect baseball cards and comic books and all of those. And physical collections are great. And the wonderful thing about NFTs is that it doesn't eliminate the need for physical engagement. You can attach other items to NFTs, right? And all of those additional items can be sold and connected to the works, the NFTs. So the NFTs are just kind of like that right to a unique object, right? A non-fungible object, right? So, Bunny, what you have a comment? Bunny. Oh, she muted. Okay. I saw you unmuted. I was like, no, no worries. No worries. No worries. But so when I reflect on what's going on with that, I really think that, and I'm not a short-term kind of guy, and don't get me wrong, I'm not telling you that I don't day trade. I'm not telling you that I don't do those kind of things. Of course, I get into, I've traded Forex, I've traded stock. If I see a profit, I'm happy to make a profit. And even in regards to crypto, there's certain cryptos that, I'm happy to take a profit on. But when it comes to assets, no, thank you, brother Knowledge. Yeah, what I was saying is, when it comes to assets, I recognize assets as well. And, in terms of, my engagement with assets in my asset practice, I love commercial real estate. It's wonderful. I love physical, assets such as, precious metals and precious stones, right? But the one thing is for sure, even though there's a lot of people that still have an appetite for those things, right? And most of those guys are traditional kind of guys that are just really looking for a way to stack, they want relics of their success, right? It's no different than, the man that, and trust me, I love cars, so I'm not going to say that I don't, like lots of cars, but you can only drive one at a time. Right. So, from an asset perspective, cars are not my first thing. The thing that I of course I love, transportation. I like planes. And just as a brief note, I discovered my dream private jet. It's called a Cirrus Vision. It's very inexpensive. And this is definitely on my list for the next year or so, because this private jet lands itself. Anyway, I digress. It's a beautiful private jet, and it's on my list anyway. But yeah, so what I'm sharing with you is that assets are assets. I love assets, but when we talk about assets, there's some assets, just like Bill Miller recognized, that are unique. It's like, in life, you have to recognize when these black swan events happen to you, right? These things happen. They happen, right? And how do you feel when you engage certain type of assets, right? I anytime I engage the purchase of real estate, I feel that same kind of warm and fuzzy about the, engaging that, or engaging those kind of purchase of physical assets, etc. I love those kind of feelings, and I feel the same kind of feeling in regards to Bitcoin. I really think that we're at a very unique moment in time, and as a result, right? When we look at the market, the top 10 assets right now over the past 7 days have been, really decimated. The biggest losers over the past 7 days are Ethereum, Solana, Terra, Polkadot, and believe it or not, all of these are really solid projects. These projects have a lot of value. So there's really no sense to what's happening here in regards to a lot of the folks that are selling, for whatever reason. However, the value proposition for Bitcoin is still there. And this year, you are going to see, something that you haven't seen from Bitcoin before. And again, I can't tell you when that's going to happen. I'm not a prophet, but it's due to happen, especially if the US government gets out of the way and allows institutional investors to have easy on-ramps to acquire it with the spot ETFs. They kicked it down to March 16th. So I'm still bullish that once that turns on, traditional investors like Bill Miller will be flocking to this safe haven asset. You look at different folks who want to speak against Bitcoin and they want to speak for physical gold. Trust me, I'm not either or kind of guy. I like traditional gold because my dad introduced me to physical AU. And I'm happy to introduce people to physical AU. That's wonderful. But digital gold, it's the same way I felt about a typewriter. I could type a paper on a typewriter, but I felt a whole lot better with a word processor. And I feel even better with a computer, right? So that's how I feel about Bitcoin. And so I really believe that, once people get past the fear and really look at the value proposition for Bitcoin and cryptocurrency blows away all of the fear, uncertainty that anybody could have. And it really will ground you in a sense of kind of comfort that you're in a good place. And part of it is these basic facts, right? One, Bitcoin is based upon blockchain technology, meaning that this is not something that sits in a black box and no one can see what's going on. It's transparent. Everybody can see what's going on, right? And then that record, that transparent record, is immutable. And immutable means it can't be changed. No one can mess with the record, right? A little different than some of these other cryptocurrencies and how they manage their blockchains. We'll get into that another time. But my point to you is Bitcoin stands alone in some of those characteristics. It has a limited supply. Only 21 million Bitcoin will ever be created ever, and we're at 19 million right now. In fact, that number actually is 18,926,375, right? So just under 19 million. And so essentially, maybe 20 years, right? Let's call it 20 years of supply. 2 more million has to be minted, and mined. So once those new Bitcoin are mined, then guess what? In order for you to get that Picasso, right? Pablo Picasso is no longer alive. So in order for you to get a Picasso, you have to buy one that already exists, right? Because new ones will not be printed. And that's part of the reason why they're so valuable, priceless in some cases. And I really believe Bill Miller is absolutely right in regards to the value proposition of that, and that insurance, that hedge against inflation, that people in destabilized economies around the world recognize immediately. They recognize it. They've been through unstable dollar and economies in their countries, and they don't want that anymore. They want insurance. They want to be able to store the value of their hard work, of their value of their investments. So, again, I'm definitely a Bitcoin bull, but I do believe in diversification. Unlike Bill Miller, who I mean, this is a man who's managed hundreds of billions of dollars, and he has essentially benefited because he's been investing in Bitcoin since it was $200, $300, $400, right? So he has a long runway. And of course he's going to be bullish. He doesn't care if Bitcoin drops to 20,000. He knows that at 20,000 he'll buy more because he's already appreciated so much on what he's already had. So again, I really see what's happening very, very clearly. And a lot of people, they get into what's the market doing today. And and when you have a broader lens on what's happening in the market, yes, you have to be realistic. I'm not trying to tell anyone to buy high and sell low and take a loss. No one is trying to do that. I'm not trying to tell everyone to go and mortgage your house and buy an NFT. No one is telling you to do that. But I am telling you that there's value in these different assets. You should consider, getting involved in cryptocurrency in one way, shape, or form, whether it's holding on to a fraction of a Bitcoin. Why? Because as I'm predicting, and I'm telling you, time will tell. A Satoshi is going to move its way till it reaches the value of a US dollar and surpasses that. It's just the basic laws of supply and demand. It's only a matter of when, because the demand is there. And as the supply continues to continue to be more and more scarce, it's no different than, if you had the opportunity to go back in time and buy property in Manhattan before it was developed, would you buy it? Of course you would. You would buy as much of it as you could, and you probably could get it really cheap. You probably could, work really, really hard, and you would know the value of if you could buy all of Harlem. You'd be a trillionaire, So the goal here is to really kind of look at that kind of lens, right? And really figure out, fast forward, where will we be? We're not prophets, but we know essentially we have some common sense. And if you go back to first principles, and first principles are always talked about by different people who are investors, and they're trying to say, what were some of those first principles? What are some of the basic fundamentals and the skills that you have that you bring to the table? One of the things that my parents taught me is common sense, right? And you don't have to have a Harvard MBA. I know plenty of them. They're good people, right? Some of them are good friends of mine, wonderful bankers. You don't have to be a Harvard MBA, because in fact, many of these bankers are banksters, and they think with a very broad institutional brush. Don't go to a bank trying to open an account saying you're going to trade crypto. They will not open that bank account. So there's fear on both sides of the coin. But I really think that all of this fear is going to, in another 5-10 years, as the regulations are leveling out, as a lot of the fake cryptocurrency projects get wiped off the face of the earth. Many of them are going to go to zero. We know that. We know that. But always look for the value. Look for the value in terms of the teams. Look for the value in terms of the leadership. And the last point is this. Guess what? There's no one that you can put in handcuffs to shut down Bitcoin. No one. A lot of people that are predicting that Satoshi Nakamoto has died. I feel that way as well. I don't think any of the people who are saying they're Satoshi Nakamoto are Satoshi Nakamoto. My feeling is that Satoshi Nakamoto may have passed away, and I think there's good evidence for that. He has one of the largest Bitcoin fortunes in the history of the world, and no money is being transacted. It tells me something is going on, right? Anyway, my soapbox. I'll step down, and if there's any questions, I'm happy to take those at this time, before we wrap up. But it's certainly, a pleasure to, spend some time with you. Definitely, just want to encourage you to, be, um, be greedy when others are fearful, right? There's a lot of times when, people are uncertain, and uncertainty breeds, kind of this inaction. And if you are, at least in uncertain times, make a decision. You could be wrong, but don't allow that decision to harm you in any way. Of course, manage your risk at all times, but at the same time, take action today. And the action you take today, I think, will benefit you for years and years and generations to come. So that's the end of my soapbox. I can. Yes, sure. Yes. So you're going to wrap your memories, because essentially what you did was convert your time to memories, and you were staking it in the Wonderland project. And essentially what was happening, and you know as I shared in this room, what's very clear is that the Wonderland cryptocurrency, as well as many, are directly, if not inversely, correlated with Bitcoin. So when you see Bitcoin when Bitcoin when Bitcoin sneezes, all of the cryptocurrencies are going to catch a cold. So the what's happening right now, because of the regulatory and the fear and all of the economic challenges that are on the table, that I believe are very, very short term, for this year, in the big picture, scheme of things. It's affecting the price of time. Therefore, in the short run, even though, when I look at my memories have expanded, 300% since, before Thanksgiving, right? So when I look at that kind of appreciation, I'm like, whoa. Now, when you try to figure out, what's directly happening with time, you would get fearful and say, oh, I'm losing money because time is dropping. Now, here's the solution. And again, the Daniel Siesta, the head of that particular Wonderland staking project. This is an Italian, genius. I mean, I really think he's, quite visionary in regards to what he's doing, but he's also quite tangible. And that's what really allows me to give him the credit, because I really think that what he's done, Bunny, is he has allowed, he's answering, he's engaging with the population. And that's why, if you saw my second video, he posted an 11 post tweet to say, this is what we're doing. And of course they have a Discord and all that, but in on top of it, the goal here is for, folks in the ecosystem not to get fearful, but to understand that their goal is to continue to grow the treasury. So what they're doing is moving away from a limited environment, such as the Trader Joe XYZ limited environment, to a sushi swap environment. They've been negotiating this for some time. The rumors have been out there. So I was happy to see that they took action. And now essentially the profit is going to be the growth of your wrapped memos. And if you didn't see the link, I responded to a post in my YouTube channel And that I have the link to where you could actually see the value of the wrapped memo, and then you can really see what the value of your wrapped memo is. Because essentially the question is, it's no longer a question of time. It's a question that what they did is innovate through the problem to say they want to answer the short-term problem, because soon as Bitcoin starts taking off, it's going to support the whole ecosystem even more. So that's going to like lighter fuel to or jet fuel to the problem. So that's the long and the short of it. But just know that they've answered some of the short-term problems, including even short-term capital gains, because expanding the number of assets you have as opposed to the asset growing in value. So it's a different thing. And again, this is not tax or financial advice. It's really just giving you an update on what that project is doing. I'm still very bullish on the project, and certainly going to continue to double down on the wrapped memos and the strategy that a lot of people are doing. And again, I'm not telling you how to do it, but I'm telling you people are doing it. And I wanted you to, anyone who's a newbie, I want people to hear this in this newbie room so that you can take advantage of it too. And one way people are doing it is they're wrapping the memo, and then they're essentially, let's say they had, $1,000 worth of memo, they're taking that wrapped memo that's growing, and then they're getting a loan against it and wrapping it again. So they're doubling down on the profit that they're getting, which is growing faster than any interest payments or anything that they would pay for borrowing against their own assets. So there's some fabulous models that are and these are common sense models. We're not getting into derivatives. We're not talking about futures or anything else that are very, very good assets, but you really have to understand what you're doing, or you can lose a lot of money. And I'm not telling anyone to over leverage or anything like that, because if you over leverage and there's even a hiccup, you could lose your asset. So the goal is hold your wrap memos. It's like holding a stock. If you didn't wrap it and you left it in the dashboard, it still does have value, yes. But then when you leave it in the dashboard, your exit is time. The move that is recommended right now is for you to wrap it and get the rebases at that point. Again, just know that what you're seeing as losses the whole market is depressed. There's not an asset that is, in crypto that is, stable besides stable coins, right? And as Bruno intimated earlier, there's still some questions about folks managing the Tether project, and and them keeping the proper liquidity ratios that they need to be keeping, as opposed to gambling reserves that they shouldn't be touching. So in some way, shape, or form, they're playing with house money, and they shouldn't be doing that, right? So this is the need for regulation. That's why DeFi needs regulation. It doesn't change what we're talking about right now. What I'm sharing with you is still that and Bunny, we could talk offline in more detail, but what I'm sharing with you is that if you look at the growth of the actual growth that was compounding, it helped to offset the reduction of time. And moving forward, the wrapped memos have value in and of themselves, and the liquidity is being moved to really accelerate that. So, the same APY or very similar APY will continue to be present with the wrapped memo. So that's their solution to the short-term cryptocurrency meltdown that's occurring. No, of course, anytime. Joseph, what's going on, man? Haven't seen you in a little while. we're about to wrap up. You come into the tail end of the room, but definitely like to see you, man. So thank you, and thank everyone for coming in. You know, it definitely, you know, every Tuesday we like to, you know, spend a little time and share some basics in this room. You know, again, Joseph, how you doing, man? We both have been good busy. There's a lot of good busy, Joseph. We've been good busy, man. I totally see it, man. It's been a fabulous year, and I wish you a lot of prosperity in 2022. You know, along with everyone else here in this room. You know, I'm gonna certainly wrap up the room now, and you know, go eat a late dinner. But you know, always a pleasure. See you guys again next Tuesday. Engage. If you have any questions, certainly reach out to me. You know, the link that I put at the top is my book. You're going to start seeing a lot more press about the book coming out real soon. You know, because I really want to make sure that people are engaging and you know, have safe strategies to really get into cryptocurrency. There's a lot of safe ways to engage, a lot of safe ways to, you know, manage, you know, volatility and risk, and really have a strategy that allows you to kind of transcend what's happening in the short term with some long-term approaches. So, you know, God bless everyone. Have a good night. Blessing in the billions to everyone in 2022.